Noopept is an ampikine nootropic, and it's similar in action to the racetam class of compounds. Noopept is up to 1,000 times more potent than the original racetam piracetam. Noopept was patented by a Russian-based pharmaceutical company in 1996. Research shows that Noopept has similar effect but works differently than other nootropics in the racetam family. Noopept is not considered a true racetam because it doesn't have a 2-oxypyrrolidone core. Noopept doesn't appear in blood samples when taken as a supplement. Instead, it elevates concentrations of cyclopropylglycine in the brain. Cyclopropylglycine is a dipeptide consisting of proline and glycine, and this acts as a modulator of acetylcholine transmission and the AMPA receptor's function. Noopept is patented in both Russia and the US. It's sold as a prescription drug in Russia and other countries that were part of the Soviet Union, and as a supplement in the US. Neurohackers use Noopept to boost cognition, memory, and learning, and to improve reflexes, perception, logical thinking, and mood. Noopept increases nerve growth factor and brain-derived nootropic factor, critical for neuroplasticity and long-term potentiation. Brain health gets a boost along with long-term memory. Noopept prevents the release of excess glutamate in your brain. Glutamate is the brain's primary excitatory neurotransmitter. When there's a lack of oxygen in your brain, neurons can't receive glutamate. This can lead to toxic levels of glutamate within the brain cells, and it can result in neuron damage and death. Diminishing this neurotoxic overload with Noopept is a potent neuroprotection. Noopept boosts alpha and beta brainwave activity. You become calmer and more creative. It's easier to get into a flow state, and you're prone to making innovative and resourceful decisions. Researchers in Moscow found Noopept similar to piracetam in not only its nootropic effect, but also its anxiolytic activity. Noopept is a water-soluble ampikine nootropic. AMPA refers to one of 3 glutamate receptors in your brain. Noopept could also be considered a cholinergic compound because it affects acetylcholine levels in the brain. One of the newer synthetic nootropic compounds, Noopept is also known as a cognitive enhancer, and is known for its anxiolytic or anti-anxiety effects. Noopept is considered to be up to 1,000 times more potent than piracetam. As an ampikine nootropic, it helps to increase attention span, alertness, and boost all 3 levels of memory, being memory formation, memory retention, and recall. Ampikines tend to have a stimulant effect, but they don't produce the same stimulant side effects as Ritalin or coffee from prolonged use. Noopept and piracetam are both water-soluble, and both Noopept and piracetam are cognitive enhancers. Both have neuroprotective and anxiolytic or anti-anxiety qualities. Both are able to improve learning and memory, and both are able to repair brain damage. But Noopept has additional benefits not shared with piracetam. First, the effective dose of Noopept compared to piracetam is 1,000 times lower. A typical dose of Noopept is only 10 to 30 milligrams, while piracetam is often dosed up to 3,000 to 4,000 milligrams. Secondly, piracetam facilitates only the early stages of the memory process. On the other hand, Noopept influences memory consolidation and retrieval steps also. So Noopept helps you develop the memory, retain the memory, and then recall what you've stored in your memory. Noopept also has additional selective anxiolytic or anti-anxiety action. Researchers believe this is due in part to Noopept's antioxidant effect, anti-inflammatory action, and the ability to prevent the neurotoxic effects of too much calcium and glutamate. Noopept boosts brain health and function in several ways, but 2 in particular stand out. It modulates the AMPA and the NMDA receptor and acetylcholine transmission. Noopept boosts the level of cyclopropylglycine in the brain, and this is a dipeptide consisting of proline and glycine, and it acts as a modulator of acetylcholine transmission and of the AMPA and the NMDA receptors. When brain cells are starved of oxygen, glutamate, which is your brain's primary excitatory neurotransmitter doesn't work efficiently with the neuroreceptors. The result can be a toxic buildup of glutamate within the brain cells, causing neuron damage and ultimately neuron death. Noopept modulates the neuroreceptor function, keeping glutamate transmission at normal levels, protecting neurons and other brain cells from glutamate damage. Noopept has also been shown to modulate acetylcholine flow in the brain. Restoring the harmony of glutamate and acetylcholine function not only protects your brain from damage, but it can boost cognition, memory, learning, recall, mood, and relieve anxiety. Noopept increases nerve growth factor, brain-derived nootropic factor, and mRNA. Nerve growth factor and brain-derived nootropic factor are directly related to neuroplasticity. This ability to repair and even grow new brain cells can have profound implications, particularly with someone with neurodegenerative brain damage like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's disease, and even affecting long-term potentiation needed for long-term memory development. mRNA affects the expression of genes and intracellular communication in the brain cells. This ongoing brain signaling and gene expression within brain cells is required for healthy cognition. One study conducted in Moscow showed the long-term use of Noopept boosted nerve growth factor, brain-derived nootropic factor, and mRNA. The animal subjects in the study showed no signs of tolerance, and long-term use of Noopept even potentiated the nootropic effect. Glutamate is an excitatory relative of GABA. While GABA has a calming effect, glutamate stimulates. Glutamate is the most common neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. Noopept increases nerve growth factor and brain-derived nootropic factor. But glutamate can be toxic to neurons, and too much of it in your brain can kill brain cells. Lou Gehrig's disease, for example, is caused by excess glutamate. But glutamate is a pivotal neurotransmitter in the brain. It links the brain circuits that are involved in memory, learning, and perception. Too much glutamate can kill neurons. Too little glutamate can cause problems with memory, learning, and perception. Acetylcholine levels decline, nerve growth factor declines, brain-derived nootropic factor levels decline. All of these changes can happen at any age, and they're a product of the food we eat, what we drink, the lifestyle habits, the air we breathe, and more. So Noopept can help for age-related cognitive decline, as well as students looking to do better in school, by boosting the nerve growth factor, the brain-derived nootropic factor, and acetylcholine, and by controlling the glutamate levels in your brain. Noopept modulates the AMPA and the NMDA receptors. AMPA receptors are associated with how glutamate and calcium is used in your brain. With Noopept, it's more of a neuroprotective role. Noopept improves memory and long-term potentiation. Similar to the AMPA receptor, the NMDA receptor is also associated with glutamate and calcium use in your brain. They work together to modulate how neurons use glutamate. Noopept modulates the levels of glutamate within and between the neurons. It prevents glutamate toxicity, and it influences long-term potentiation. Long-term potentiation is associated with neuroplasticity that allows long-term memories to form. There's clinical evidence that Noopept boosts communication and neuron signaling by boosting alpha and beta brainwave activity. You become calmer and more creative. It's easier to go into a flow state, and you're prone to making innovative and resourceful decisions. Noopept produces an anxiolytic or anti-anxiety effect. It stimulates dopamine D2 and D3 receptors and acetylcholine nicotinic receptors. And Noopept also seems to modulate some serotonin receptors, all contributing to a better mood and less anxiety. Noopept has been shown in the lab to boost nerve growth factor and brain-derived nootropic factor. Nerve growth factor and brain-derived nootropic factor are both involved in neuroplasticity and the repair and the replacement of damaged brain cells, resulting in overall better brain health, memory, and cognition. Noopept is water-soluble, and it quickly enters your brain after you take it. Once in your brain, it boosts signal transmission and it protects the neurons. On its own, Noopept increases focus and attention for many neurohackers. Mental arithmetic and grasping difficult concepts becomes easier. Your conversational skills could also improve with Noopept. Vocabulary comes easier. Being able to focus contributes to a more balanced dialogue. Neurohackers report being more outgoing, friendly, and less self-conscious. With Noopept, you may find yourself better able to deal with stressful situations and work issues that normally get you down. Once you get past the first few weeks of unpleasant memories that could be related to post-traumatic stress disorder, you may find overwhelming emotions will subside. You could feel detached in a pleasant way from painful memories. Many users report increased pleasure when listening to music while using Noopept. For some, it takes music to a different place. Distinguishing between instruments in soundtracks is easier. As a whole, music sounds better. Noopept affects nerve growth factor and brain-derived nootropic factor, which affects long-term potentiation. Some neurohackers report memories long forgotten suddenly spring up. This could be good or bad depending on the memory. But reports say memories are clear, and if they're unpleasant, there's an emotional detachment shielding from the unpleasant feelings. You should be able to experience the effects of Noopept soon after you take it. It's water-soluble and it enters your cells quickly, especially if you take it sublingually. A word of caution, however, don't overdo the recommended dose of 30 milligrams per day. You won't experience any added benefit and it could bring on unwanted side effects. There's some debate on the water solubility of Noopept. It's not truly fat soluble, but it certainly doesn't hurt to use a good quality fat when taking Noopept. A study published in the Russian Academy of Medical Sciences in Moscow shows that Noopept stimulates nerve growth factor and brain-derived nootropic factor. In the study, researchers studied the effects of a single and a long-term treatment of 28 days of Noopept. They found that the one-time treatment boosted mRNA in the cerebral cortex of rats. mRNA is a molecule in the brain cells, and it carries codes from DNA where they specify the amino acid sequence of the proteins. And the long-term treatment of Noopept increased brain-derived nootropic factor. The researchers speculated that this sequence of events in the brain plays a role in the restoration of neurons. Improving neurotropin synthesis in the hippocampus boosts cognitive function, particularly consolidation and delayed memory retrieval. The research team concluded that Noopept holds much more promise to prevent the development of Alzheimer's disease in patients with mild cognitive impairment. Researchers in Moscow studied the effects of injecting Noopept into rats to see how it would affect brainwaves. The team found that Noopept increased alpha and beta brainwave activity throughout the brain. You experience alpha waves when you become more relaxed. Alpha waves are associated with super learning, flow states, and joy. Beta waves are associated with concentration, alertness, and cognition. The researchers observed the NMDA receptor was involved with a single injection of Noopept, while the AMPA receptors were activated after longer use of Noopept. NMDA receptors are associated with long-term potentiation, or long-term memory formation, and neuroplasticity. AMPA receptors are associated with increased brain signaling activity, boosting cognition and memory. Noopept is known within the nootropic community for enhancing memory, and dozens of studies support this claim of better memory when using Noopept. One study done at the Russian Academy of Medical Sciences in Moscow experimented with Noopept on rats. The animals were trained in a passive avoidance response. The animal's ability to both form a memory and to retain a memory was impaired. But once the rats received a dose of Noopept, they were able to retain memory and retrieve that memory later. In other words, Noopept normalized learning capacity in animals with damage done to their cerebral cortex, and it promoted training ability in rats with hereditary learning deficit. The researchers noted that Noopept improves all 3 stages of memory, and it was most pronounced in those with impaired memory function. Another study again, done with rats, noted that Noopept stimulated learning after just a single dose, and repeated administration actually increased the number of successful learners among the animals who failed the initial training. The recommended Noopept dose is 10 to 30 milligrams per day. Noopept is very bioavailable and easily crosses the blood-brain barrier. For even quicker absorption, you can use Noopept sublingually, for example, dissolved in DMSO. Let this dissolve under your tongue so it can go straight into your bloodstream and into your brain, bypassing your digestive system completely. Noopept is a synthetic nootropic and is considered non-toxic, so it's considered well tolerated and safe, as long as you stay within the recommended dose. Side effects are rare, but they can include fatigue, headaches, insomnia, or stomach upset. Side effects are often a result of unusually high doses. Headaches from Noopept typically happen when you forget to combine it with a good choline supplement. Headaches are often just a symptom of a choline-deficient brain. Many people stack Noopept with a paracetam base and choline, then enhance its effect further by stacking lion's mane mushroom for brain-derived nootropic factor, and taking the choline with uridine and omega-3 EPA DHA fish oil, as this blend has been proven to increase the growth of synaptic connections in the brain.